Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice 6-game Major League Baseball slate that starts at 7 o'clock tonight for the main slate here. Before I get started, you guys smash that like and subscribe button. We have started this season out on a banger, and we have had 2 really solid days, so hopefully we can continue that here. With that said, pitching is super key in fantasy, so you do want to get these pitchers right, and I have been hitting those pretty well so far, so hopefully I don't jinx myself and miss it today, but we have a pretty interesting slate here. We do have 2 games that have some weather concerns, and that's going to be the 2 games in California, the San Francisco San Diego game and St. Louis Dodgers game. There is a weather concern there. There are also a little bit uh, lower temps at those games than the rest, so do keep that in mind as well. With that said, though, this slate does feature a pretty good uh, options here from a stacking perspective. We have the Yankees, the Cubs, and the Arizona Diamondbacks all being stackable. I will say that the Diamondbacks are going to be a very contrarian stack today as the Yankees, and I think the Cubs will be the most popular stack, I guess I should say, and then the Yankees, and then Arizona. But with that said, let's get into the slate. We're going to start with our pitchers here. So we basically have 5 guys to choose from today, and honestly, the top 3 are going to be the key options here. First is Yamamoto for the Dodgers. Now, um, he's going to be an interesting option here to start the game here. He didn't have a good start in the game in South Korea, but I look for him to have a solid opportunity here to have a good game. He has a good strikeout. He has good strikeout stuff, and he is facing a team that he should be able to do pretty good against in St. Louis. Though there is some risk here as he hasn't played much Major League Baseball yet, so I think he's a good play, but I think he's a contrarian play at only. I don't think he's a cash game play, as I think he's probably pretty avoidable, especially with 2 other options at the high end that have some upside. One of the guys there that I like a lot is Gilbert. Gilbert has played good last season with 13-7, 3.73 record. He's got pretty good strikeout stuff for this slate. He's probably third in line behind Yamamoto and then Case, but I do think he has a good matchup here against Boston. I do like a couple Boston bats, but I think that he's a relatively good option on the slate. He's got the best earn run expected here, as well as the third best strikeout stuff. And he also managed last season to have 1 game against Boston where he scored 12.7 fantasy points. He obviously wants a little bit more strikeouts, hopefully 1 or 2 more strikeouts to help him be a viable option here because we do want him to get somewhere around 18, 19 fantasy points in this game. That's definitely a doable thing today, but it is also the lowest scoring game on the slate, so that does give him some upside. And honestly, there's just not a lot of great pitchers on this one. Dylan Case is the other guy I like a lot for San Diego. Now he wasn't as good last season as he probably could have been, but now he's with a new team and he's gonna have a lot of upside here against San Francisco. He dominated San Francisco last year for a 25 fantasy point game. He also had 8 strikeouts in that one. And outside of Yamamoto, he's the best pitcher when it comes to strikeout potential, and he has the best expected runs against outside of Gilbert. So I think that those 2 guys are both the best options in Gilbert and Case. I do think Case is a little bit safer just from a fantasy perspective because he's facing the team that he should be able to have more dominance against. And it's obviously a pitcher's park, but he definitely has some good upside in this matchup. I wish he was a little bit cheaper. I wish all these top 3 were cheaper, but they do have that good upside, and they're probably the safest plays on this one. And they can all be P1 options, and maybe you can even go with 2 of them because there's plenty of value on the slate, especially with the Cubs being underpriced. Then we're going to look at 2 value plays. The first being Cutter Crawford for Boston. Now he does face Seattle. I don't love the matchup, but I think that I'm just trying to find guys that have some strikeout potential here and have a decent runs against here, and Cutter is probably one of the few guys. He also scored 18 fantasy points against Seattle last season, so he does have some opportunity here. I think if he can get 5 strikeouts, he can probably be a guy that can pay off at this price. Though he's not a must play by any stretch of imagination. The other guy is Tommy Henry, who's facing Colorado. Now I do like some Colorado bats. Today, as they do have good metrics here, but he did pretty good against Colorado last season with a 31 fantasy point game against them, and then a fantasy point game. Obviously, Colorado is a very boom or bust when it comes to being home and away, and with this game being in Arizona, that gives Colorado a little bit more difficulty, and it gives Arizona pitching a boost here. So I do think that he has some potential in this one, though he is very contrarian, and he's not a great play in general. But really, the rest of the pitchers, there's not much to like. Nobody has the expected over 4.5 strikeouts, and the other three more expensive plays are all facing top lineups on this one. And then some of the other cheaper options either won't go very deep likely, or don't have hardly any strikeout rate, or face a very tough teams. So like I said at the beginning, the stacks here are the Yankees, the Cubs, and Arizona. So that will be a very key thing for the slate. When we look at the totals for this one, the Dodgers definitely have the most upside here, along with Arizona, as they do have good matchups for total runs. But I do think the Yankees are kind of a contrarian option today. And then obviously the Cubs have a great matchup against Texas, which I think both these teams could be pretty good. Texas is kind of a sneaky stack as well, and so I think that here and in this one, especially with the good value plays available on those teams. I did find the Texas and Chicago Cubs were a little bit underpriced today, so that definitely gives us some advantage as well. Looking at our catchers here, so we have quite a few decent options here. I could have made a list with half of the catchers on the slate. It's going to be a round robin of best options here. The best way to run catcher today is just go with the team that you're going to stack and use the catcher from that team. Obviously, Contreras for St. Louis is an interesting contrarian play, and then Mariano for Arizona is a guy I really like here. He's got the best opportunity to just to get hits. As for these 32, 31, and 33 point fantasy, or sorry, these priced guys in Diaz, Heim, and Gomez, I think all three of these guys have a ton of upside today, and you just need to, if you're going to stack one of those three teams and use this catcher, this is really how I look at this particular position today. It's just use the catcher that goes with the team that you're going to stack up. Also, Cal Raleigh for Seattle is a very home run or best option today, and so he looks like a solid opportunity as well. It's really just that's how catcher is today. It's take the one you stack and go with it. Looking at first base here, I do like Otani. However, he is extremely expensive on this one, but he does have that home run upside, obviously, and good hitting. He's going to be popular, but he's going to be hard to roster depending on how we stack things up and what pitchers we use. But if you go with the Dodger stack, then he's definitely somebody to roll out there. Bellinger and Otani both can have first and outfield positioning, and so that gives us some upside with Bellinger. He's almost $800 cheaper than Otani, and he's got the same upside today. He's going to be very chalky for the Cubs, and especially in Cubs stacks, but he's even a good one-off because he has a multiple position opportunity, and so he's got nice upside here. Lamont Wade Jr. is somebody that has a tough matchup against Case, but he does have some good metrics for this game, and so he's a value play with some good hitting upside. It's definitely a risky one, but he's dirt cheap, and that definitely helps here. Cronenworth for San Diego is also a guy I like today. He's typically a guy that I like in certain situations, and this is just one of them. He doesn't have the home run upside that Wade does as much, but he does good hitting metrics, so he's definitely a viable option. You can also consider Chris Bryant as a contrarian play, or Casas, sorry, for as a home run boomer bust, and then Jose Abreu as well at this position have some upside. Looking at second base, this position feels like there's not a ton of great options, but then picking between the top three or four is going to be somewhat annoying as they're similar priced, with the exception of one guy, and so I do think this is a pretty good position. From at the top, this is hard to. It might be just kind of more like the catcher, where you just go with whichever team you stack here. But Simeon for Texas is definitely a viable option today. He's got the most home run upside on the slate. He's also got good hitting potential, a low strikeout rate. Hard to dislike him here. He's got good metrics and nice potential. Then we'll look at Bogarts for San Diego. He's a good contrarian option off of Simeon. Not sure that he has the home run upside today, but he has a good hit rate, and so he's definitely somebody I would look at from San Diego. And then Horner for the Cubs. He will be a pretty popular play today, as he's got good metrics for this game, and I do like his upside. However, the home run threat is a little bit more limited, and if Madrigal plays for the Cubs today, then that would definitely take away from Warner some, as Madrigal is dirt cheap. Where is he? He's only $2,500, and he draws really good metrics for this game. He has nice upside and good potential as a value play, and he's just dirt cheap, and he really helps you with a Chicago Cubs stack right here. Looking at third base, also consider for second base is Keto Marte, as he's a good alternative to Bogarts and Simeon if you want to go that route. Looking at third base here, we do have some good options. It's a pretty limited position though for the slate. The vast majority of usage will go to the top three guys here, and there's not much else to really be to consider too much. But there are some Hail Mary plays available. The first being Chris Morel. Obviously, he can play in outfield as well. He's got nice home run upside today, and he's one of my favorite plays at this position, as well as for the Cubs stack, and so he's definitely a good option. But a very good alternative to him is Jung for the Texas Rangers. He was good in bunches last season in certain areas, and this is a great situation for him. I think the Texas and Chicago Cubs are definitely both stackable teams, and him and Morel basically have very similar metrics for this matchup. So whichever team you stack, go with that guy. But if you want a Hail Mary value play, then you can go with a Bush uh, for where is he? Bush for the Cubs. If he does draw the start today, he'll have some fantasy relevancy today with the Cubs stack. Though he's not a must play, he'll just be popular because of his price. You could also consider Devers and Machado at this position, but honestly, there's not too much need to go into those guys on this particular slate. Looking at a shortstop here, we have some not a ton of value, not a ton of home run upside on the slate at shortstop, which there never is. Outside of Seager, he becomes a great play as a result of that. But there are other options available, but they just aren't that great. I do like Seager a lot for Texas, though he is extremely expensive, and he does have that home run upside and good hitting potential, good everything. So this is a great situation for him, and even a one-off with Seager is definitely somebody that's considerable. Bogarts, I already talked about him at second base, but he is available here at third base as well, and he's got a good matchup. And then Dansby Swanson for the Cubs. If you like the Cubs today, then he's somebody I would look at, though I don't think he's a must-play when it comes to the stackability, but he does have some potential today. As for also considers, Alexander and Ahmad both have some upside as they're dirt cheap, and that does give them some upside, but it's definitely risky on this one. Looking at outfielders, obviously, Otani is a top tier option. He can play first base as well. He's going to be hard to roster, like I said, so do keep that in mind. But Alvarez looks like a really good option today. He's got a lot of home run upside, and I like his potential here against the Yankees pitching, and he's going to have some good opportunity as a one off kind of guy. Nolan Jones is a guy I do like, even though for Colorado, he's going to be the best option on their team. He is expensive, though, but he looks like he's going to be a pretty good option today. Bellinger can also play at first base, as I already mentioned, and he could also fit out here at the outfield. Um, then we're going to get to a couple guys, and Suzuki, Ian Hop, and Evan Carter. So Suzuki, Hop, and Carter all have virtually the same metrics today, and they're also virtually the same prices. I'm going to put it in the order of Suzuki, Hop, and Carter. I think all three of these guys are viable. In fact, you could just go with all three if you can afford to put them in here like that, as they all have really good metrics for this game and have a lot of upside as a result. And so I think they're really solid opportunity for all of those guys. Chris Morel can also play here in the outfield, as I mentioned before. And then some other value plays here is Donovan for St. Louis. Now he's very contrarian play, but he does have some good metrics for this game and has hitting potential. I think he's got a nice upside game here. And then two extremely valuable plays. Value plays would be Langford for Texas. He's gonna draw some good opportunity here. He did okay in his first game on opening day, and I look for him to have another opportunity to have a good game at this position, especially in a good favorable matchup. And then Victor Scott Jr. Victor Scott the second against the Dodgers. He's going to have some good potential in this one because he's a Hail Mary option at high risk, high reward, though. So with that said, guys, I thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. I forgot to put in my core play just to lock them in here. So I'm going to put Morel here. Uh, let's do that here in the outfield. And then I'm going to put in Josh Jung here at third, as I think those are my two favorite plays on the slate in general. But you could put one of those guys and then put Suzuki, Hopper, Carter in the outfield. So, yep, pretty interesting slate. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.